I want to talk for a few minutes about issues that really disproportionately affect women in our state and in our country. Rod, can you start us off with some of the discussions that are happening around paid family leave?
It's interesting that there are two Republican proposals, one involving Mike Lee. I think Mitt Romney may have signed on to the other one as well. And the measures would be basically to allow people to access their Social Security money to provide them funding during paid leave. And these are Republican issues, Republican-driven efforts, which is interesting, and I think primarily because of Ivanka Trump. She's been a big push on all of this. So it's interesting to see how they're looking, but they're saying, look, if we can do something, maybe using Social Security and upfront that money to help people through this process. America is the only country in the world, I think now, that does not have a paid leave policy, and they're trying to address that issue. And it's going to be interesting to see how much Democrats will come along with this, and what about the big business community? How's this all going to be paid for? But it's interesting to see that there are two Republican initiatives looking at a paid leave policy right now.
Yeah, it's always interesting when there are these issues that one party's been pushing, the other party comes on board, and how do they work together to make that happen? We are also in recognition that April usually signifies Equal Pay Day. Nicole, we have some analysis on how many cents on the dollar women make to men, both nationwide and in the state. What's some of your analysis about that?
Well, we know that Utah has lagged behind significantly the national average of this. So I think it's important to acknowledge that, at least. And there was an article this week that found that if you take away factors like education and job selection, that Utah women are not as far behind. But I think it's important to note that you can't just take away those things from the equation. A woman's education, an employee's education is obviously an important factor in their job search, and the kind of job that they work obviously directly relates to the salary they're going to make. So I don't think you can get the whole picture by taking away part of the picture on the wage gap for women in Utah and across the country.
And part of that is we have jobs in higher numbers in some states. We have more school kids, which means we need more educators. And those are positions that are lower paid than some people believe they should be. We had Envision Utah, which is normally a planning organization that helps figure out how to build a good downtown, getting involved in education policy. And their argument is teachers aren't paid enough. And if you paid them more, you'd retain more of them. Well, this would go directly to this issue. We have a majority of our teachers who are women. And if this is a position where they're paid lower than they would be in surrounding states, lower than they would be in other professions of similar stature, then if we address that as a state, this wage gap issue that we have in this state, which is more significant than every other state, would get smaller to some degree. So Envision Utah is going to try to hit a target salary and then come up with policies to get to that. This is going to be a long process, but it's the start of an interesting conversation.
Yeah, and it raised a very good question. How much should a teacher be paid? And I don't know if there's an easy answer to it, to be real honest.
Right now it's more.
Yeah. Everybody's saying it's more, but there's so many factors involved. I think it's interesting that Envision Utah is trying to address this, and if they come up with a figure, okay, then what do we do with that figure?
Yeah. It's interesting. Equal pay, teacher pay, all major issues in our state. Thanks so much for joining us.